It's a sunny morning in late March at Twin Oaks Farm Poultry in southeast rural Ohio, USA, and we're so glad that you're here. Thanks for joining us. Today we're talking about how much food do meat chickens eat over their start, grow, and finish period. Good morning, it's Melissa. Welcome back to Twin Oaks Farm Poultry. Thank you so much for joining us on YouTube. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We greatly appreciate your help with that. As I said, today we're talking about what do meat chickens eat, how much do meat chickens eat, and getting you a point of reference on feeding meat chickens if you're interested in finishing out some for yourself and raising them for your household. You know that saying, he eats like a horse or she eats like a horse, and we know, oh, that means they eat a lot. I really think the saying should be they eat like a meat chicken, because these meat chickens are heavy feeders, but they're also heavy growers. So I'm going to let us look at the activity of the birds while we're talking about this, but just a few minutes briefly summarizing what do meat chickens eat and how much do meat chickens eat. So welcome back to the barn. This is a group of 6-day-old Cornish Rock Cross meat chickens. And since we're talking about the feed, I'm going to show you why the feeding is so important for these birds and why they eat so much. 6 days old, almost 6 weeks old. So you can see the huge size difference that we're talking about in a relatively short amount of time. And that's why these Cornish Rock Cross meat chickens are the most popular meat birds in America. They are heavy feeders, but they're also efficient feeders, and they produce a lot of meat from that feed they consume, and they do it in a relatively short amount of time, because we will feed these birds, and in about 6 weeks, we will have chicks that have grown into chickens that are ready to be processed for meat. So we feed a 22% protein starter feed to start our birds out. You actually can feed that feed from start to finish, but there are some other options, so we'll talk about that too. I'm going to show you the texture of this feed. You can see it pretty plainly in this little tray feeder here. This kind of feeder is an appropriate size for the baby chicks. Certainly the first week they can use this. Probably can even stretch this into 2 weeks. What you got to watch for is at some point their heads kind of start to get stuck in those holes that they access the food through. But you can see the texture of that food there. It's smaller than a pellet, but it's larger than like the mash or layer feed that we give to egg chickens. So that's called a crumble, and that's the size you want to get for your little Cornish Rock Cross meat chicks. So the reference point that you can use, we found this to be super reliable, is that a single meat bird will eat 10 pounds of feed over its start, grow, and finish, which for us is 6 weeks. Now you can extend that time, maybe a week or two. Our birds are raised indoors. They do have access to go outside, but as far as their feed stuff and feed substance, that's coming from what we put in the feeders for them. So we have found 10 pounds of feed per bird to go from start to finish is an accurate, reliable number. Now I've known people that maybe raise 25 birds at a time, and they've been a little bit different experience. They might have raised those birds exclusively outside, like in chicken tractors. That might make a little bit of difference, but for effectiveness and efficiency, we found that sticking with that reference point of 10 pounds of feed per bird from start to finish is very reliable. So as I said, we start them off with a high protein 22%. Now most of those 22% feeds like that for these meat birds are called a start to finish, so you could actually feed that the whole time. Now you have some options though. We have had success with, at about 3 weeks, backing them down to either a 19% or a 20% chicken grower feed and kind of lowering that protein a little bit. So that's another option you have. And then another thing we like to do is that at the end of our chickens grow out, we actually take them totally off the chicken feed, and we prefer to finish them on just cracked corn. So like these birds here at almost a week old that we're looking at, they are on the 22% meat bird start to finish feed. That group over there that we saw of the older birds, we've kept them on the 22% instead of lowering the protein, but we are today changing them over to cracked corn, and they actually will be finished in about 4 days and go to the processor. So they're going to finish on just the cracked corn. So that's what we recommend on these meat birds. Start definitely with the 22% protein, and you could bump it down to 19 or 20% if you want to during the grow out, and then you could even finish in the last 4 or 5 days in the last week on something like just straight cracked corn. We've had a lot of success with that. And that reference point, that'll help you out if you're trying to figure out how much feed do I buy for meat chickens. Plan on 10 pounds per bird. And our reference point is usually by the 100 birds. So, you know, if we know 10 pounds per bird, then we can figure out 1,000 pounds per 100 birds. So that would be about 20 bags of feed, because they're typically sold in 50-pound bags. And we would actually prefer, if we have the funds to buy it ahead, we prefer to buy the feed by the pallet. So that's the unit that you can buy feed like in bulk, and that's 40 bags. So I know that 40 bags will take care of 200 chickens for me. So actually, like this group, that's what we've done with this group. We bought a pallet of feed because there's actually 230 chickens here. And so at least 200 of them should finish and make it to the processing date. So that's kind of how we use a point of reference on feed. So that should help you out if you're wanting to raise these birds. Definitely plan on 10 pounds of feed per bird that you want to raise. Thank you so much for joining us at Twin Oaks Farm Poultry. Put any questions or thoughts or experiences in the comments. We love to hear your experience with any of these topics. Thanks again. Have a great day.